Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we have veteran, writer, and creator of his 20th Pike Logan novel, Brad Taylor. How you doing, Brad?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
You know, before we start talking about the books, I served 3 years in the 82nd Airborne a long time ago, and a lot of people, when they do 20 years and they get out, they lose purpose. And I saw a lot of my friends who were suffering when they retired and everything else like that. You know, you've survived it pretty well. You know, what advice would you give to other veterans who are they're short, they're getting ready to get out? You know, should they have a plan? Is there anything that you would recommend?
Recording in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think that, and purpose is what it is. That's the kind of the one thing you do lose. You lose a camaraderie and you lose, the routine and the discipline and that kind of stuff you had on a day-to-day basis. But what you really lose is a purpose. You miss that working for a greater good, working for a national effort. And I would recommend getting into some veterans organizations, charity events. Like I'm an ambassador for Special Operations Warrior Foundation. We host events here every year. And you get still linked into the veteran community and you still have a sense of purpose. That's what I would recommend.
Now, you started the Pike Logan novel. You're going, I got to write a book. I got to write a book. I got to write a book. And suddenly you're teaching at the Citadel and you have time to write it. And you're going, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I just, in my head, I always had this sense that I would write a book one day. And I was in a special mission unit at Fort Bragg, and deployed since 9/11. And so as a break, I just came down to the Citadel to teach for a couple of years and I was going back. And I had a ton of time on my hands. I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I decided to write a book. And I had no intention of setting out to be a writer. And to my surprise, it sold. And I had to make a hard choice. I came out on the promotion list for colonel. My daughter was entering high school. My next assignment, they told me, was 2 years unaccompanied to Pakistan. And I couldn't publish the book if I was staying in the military.
Yeah.
And so I decided to turn down the promotion and give writing a try.
I can't imagine that moment where you're going, okay, I've been doing this for 20 years. This is it's a major defining factor of who I am. Was it more the book or being away from your family that I think made that decision for you?
It was a confluence it was more family stuff. Yeah. And the fact that the book had sold, because my daughter was an Air Force brat and she went to 4 high schools in 4 years. I was looking at the same thing with my girls. Yeah. And I was lucky because I spent a majority of my time at Fort Bragg. So they were kind of stable. Yeah. I mean, when one daughter was born in Okinawa, the other one was born at Fort Bragg. And so there were a lot of competing interests going into that.
Yeah, I did my time at, Vietnam, whatever we want to call it. It was a lot of different names when I was there. I remember that's the hard thing. As a veteran, things change. And when politics get into the military, it's really difficult to figure out. And the best thing for me was never to say anything. You know, people always asked me. And I guess when they changed the name back to Fort Bragg, did that make you happy? Or was it or were you happy with the other way? Or did it not even matter?
It didn't. What mattered to me was exactly what you said, that it was injecting politics from the beginning. It was injecting politics into the discussion about the military. And they're kind of caught in the middle of it. It'll always be Fort Bragg to me just because that's what it was. I'd have to think, what was it, Fort Liberty? You think about what it was. But I wasn't upset that they changed it. I wasn't upset that they changed it back. I was upset that this was even a discussion.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. Now, your character, Pike Logan, you say it's not based on you. You said it's based on the people you knew. The hard thing I know, because I also write comic books and graphic novels, is when you write that first book and it takes off. And people go, we want more of this. And you're going, well, I was actually thinking about writing something else.
I actually wasn't thinking, like I said, I had no intention of being a writer. So when the guy bought the book, my first publisher bought the book, his questions to me were kind of funny. It was, number one, did you really write this book? Because I guess there's a lot of people who don't really write their books. Yeah. Number two, were you really in special forces? Because a lot of people lie about that. And number three, can you write another one? And I was like, I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, I think I can. There's enough bad stuff in the world. I can go for a while.
Now, I don't know if I'm older, but I was in the military in the 80s. And, we grew up, all the military guys, we had the Mac Bolan books. We had the Remo Williams book. Yeah. We had, those were our books back then in the series, the Mac Bolan series. I think there was like 200 books. How do military guys come up to you and they go, we love this? Or they go, did they argue with you if this could happen or this couldn't happen?
No, actually, what I mostly get from military guys are ideas. So, I love that last book, and I just did a mission in Syria or wherever. And you ought to look at these guys because they're not, nobody's really looking at them, but I think they're going to do something. Things like that.
What cuts me up is, I've put some military stuff in some of my comic books, and a guy will come up to me and will say, "Hey, that's not the way this weapon looks." And I well, listen, I'm not the artist. I just told him to draw one.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have that same problem with cover design. So sometimes they have a cover design, and I'm like, no, that's not going to work. Because Pike works clandestinely. He's running around the world he's doing concealed carry. Everything he's got makes him blend in. And then the cover will be somebody with plate hangers and helmets and radios and, HK 416 blasting through a door. I'm like, no, you're giving the wrong impression of what this book is about.
Now, a lot of people don't realize how tough it can be to write the same character over and over and over again and to come up with the ideas. Now, I talk to a lot of writers. Do you know your ending before you start the book, or do you just kind of start the outline? What's your process?
I would have said up until my 9th book, I would say did know the ending. I don't do an outline. I do what I call a framework. And so I know the threat vector. I know the setting where it's going to be in the world. And I would say I know the ending, but then on my 8th or 9th book, I changed the ending, not because anything happened, but a good example of that is this specific book, Shadow Strike. I started writing that before any of this stuff in Iran came up, and it's about Iran's asymmetric ability to attack us. And the original culminating event was Iran developing a ballistic missile technology that could evade the Aero systems, the Iron Dome, and all that stuff that Israel has, and strike their nuclear capability. Well, right as I finished, I was typing the last chapter, Israel attacked them, and we did Midnight Hammer, and we wiped out their ballistic missiles. And I'm like, well, there goes that book. So that ending definitely changed. Now I look like Nostradamus because I had to find a different threat vector, and I settled on what everybody's talking about now, the enriched uranium everybody's looking for. Well, I know where it is if you read my book. So that's the threat vector I picked.
It's so weird that when you're writing a book, if you do anything even slightly topical, you take a risk. I had a character in one of my books where he winds up becoming a handler at Westminster Dog Show. And the dog I had win, I said, there's no way, this dog hasn't won in years. The dog won. And I'm like and I was stuck because the art was stuck. And people were coming up to me, "Oh, how did you know?" I'm going, "No, stop it. I was just writing a book."
Yeah, so you want to see around corners, you want to be cutting edge, and I try to be as cutting edge as possible. But the problem with current events is they're current. I wrote Dead Man's Hand, which is about the Ukraine war against Putin, and I told my publisher when I wrote it, I said, there's a risk in writing this book because number one, the war could end. Yep. I don't think that's going to happen. Number two, Putin could get deposed. I don't think that's going to happen. Well, I turned that book in, and then Prigozhin crossed the border doing his coup, driving to Moscow. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
You can't win some days when you're writing. You're going, God, I didn't even think of this. Now, what makes me crazy, I only did 3 years in the military. But when I'm watching television, I'm listening to people who've never served or don't have an idea, and they're just saying they should do this and they should do that. I don't want to put my opinion forward. I'm dying not to go online. But how tough is it for you to go, "Oh, come on, guys. Is this what we're really arguing about?"
Yeah, and I do. When I get aggravated enough, I have a national security blog I'll write about, or I'll do videos. For instance, this Iran conflict, I did a 40-minute video on the Iran conflict. And the main thing is I do it just as an analyst. I don't have, it's not right, it's not left. There's arguments that people use to sway something one way or the other. And I don't like that. So when I see that going on, right now, if you watch TV, you can pick a channel and decide whether the war is going swimmingly or we're all doomed. And it's a gray. It's not black and white. And so I will do things like that. But for the most part, I do stay out of it.
I think our country's a little spoiled now in the sense that, wars used to go on for years. But we're used to these conflicts. Oh, Grenada, 10 minutes. Certain things, we just wipe everyone out and it's over. And they don't realize that, war is serious. Our soldiers are going to die and it's painful. And you just don't know what to say to people when they're in your face. How do you feel? I go, listen, I get told what to do. I was in the military. I didn't get to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it, I think it's actually goes the other way. And in order to succeed in Iran, you're going to have to change the ideology. That's just the way it's going to happen. And the only way to change the ideology is regime change, which we are not going to do whatsoever, precisely because we had such a long conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that is clouding, I think, our judgment. Not that I'm saying I think we should do regime change, but if you're going to go to war, you have to have a strategic objective, and that strategic objective is going to be met by certain conditions. You can't do it halfway. And so if you're not willing to do what's necessary, then don't go to war.
I ride the line. I have to because of what I do. I'm an attorney. I'm a broadcaster. I write. I'm not going to go out of my way to tick off half the country, because we are such a divided country. So I try to keep it honest. But something's really throwing me lately, and it's our politician telling soldiers not to follow orders. And they've never been soldiers. They know you don't get to do that.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. I disagreed with that, obviously, and I think anybody in the military probably did disagree with it. But I also disagree with them now attacking. There's 6 people who did it. Who's the one person I can get? Well, that guy was in the military. Let me go after him. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is turning into an S show, if you will. I wish they had never done that. It was unnecessary. All it was divisive. It didn't serve a purpose other than their specific base to gen support up for them. And now we're going the other way, and it serves only one purpose: to generate, support for this base. And the people caught in the military are in between the whole thing, and it makes me sick.
When I served, before I got out, it was before the war in Iraq, and soldiers were still not cut a break. They still had feelings about Vietnam and stuff like that. And it wasn't until after I got out where people started thanking you for your service. And there's a disconnect between a certain group of soldiers who, when they say, "Hey, stand up, be this," and some of us are still like, "No, we're good. We don't. We know this is the thing." What would you say the best way to get over something like that would be?
I still haven't gotten over it. I mean, I mean, it's a volunteer force. I volunteered to serve. When people are effusive in praise with me, saying thank you for your service, I kind of say, they did pay me. Yeah. I wasn't forced to do this. I served 22 years, but I could have left at any time. So, I appreciate very much them thanking me for a service, but it does make me feel a little awkward.
Now you're doing something. This is your 20th book in the Pike Logan series. I was told to revisit a character I did 25 years ago. And I was thinking about the mistakes I made in my first books. And that's the hardest thing for me to go, God, what was I thinking back then? I mean, have you had the opportunity to clean up some things and go, okay, I've adjusted this, I've adjusted that, because it was a little too vanilla in the beginning?
Yeah, there's several things that, like, I read my very first book, and there's certain things in there I kind of cringe at and say I would change that. But there's other things that I'm like, man, I haven't written anything that good since. But most of the stuff I've cleaned up is tactical, because you were in the military. Military people cuss. That's just what it is. We cuss. And so when I was doing my dialogue, I was talking just like I used to talk, and then I started getting emails. Why are you using the F word? Why is he saying GD? And so I did tone that down. I'm like, okay, civilians don't talk like that, so I better take that out.
Yeah. In comic books, I have to use symbols. I don't get to, it'd be like F, whatever dollar signs or whatever I put in. The hard thing is I didn't realize I used it so much until you're right. Your audience will say something to you. And do you feel, I felt bad. I'm going, God, I hope I didn't make this person unhappy.
Yeah, I do. I'll get emails and I'll respond to them. And my wife actually calls it I won't use the word, the F factor. Yeah. So when I finish the entire book up, I will search for the F word or a bunch of other cuss words. And when I get to that point, is it really necessary, or are you just talking like you're in the military? And if I am just talking like I'm in the military, I'll delete it. But sometimes it's necessary, so I leave it in. But they're very polite and just saying, I wish you wouldn't, curse so much. So I learned my lesson.
Now, you probably suffer from the same thing I suffer from, where ex-military buddies are always asking you to put them in their books. Could you put me in your book?
Yeah, I have. I had to be really careful. So my guys are from a clandestine organization. They all have call signs. And I've kind of run out of call signs, because you don't want to use the call sign that someone else uses, because then they think you're writing about them. Yep. There's only one person. I'd run out of call signs. I was on a security contract with a guy that I used to serve with who looked like a Call of Duty character. He's 6'4", bald head, big beard, muscular. And I said, "Hey, can I use your call sign?" And he said, "Well, is he going to be a baby?" He didn't say baby.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, he won't. I promise. I'll let you read it." And so I created him just like he looks. And of course, he's a good dude. And he said I could use his call sign.
Yeah. What I love about it is the weird requests I get from these guys. Hey, kill me off in your next book. As long as I die in the first minute, I'm good. And I'm like, everybody wants to die in a book. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I just did. I just came from a charity event, and I auctioned off a character, and they were asking me what kind of character it is, and I said, "Well, I can tell you one thing: he's going to die." And so they're like, "Woo!"
Yeah, it's strange. You've been writing this series, and it's been very successful. There has to be something that you're going to go. Writing a book takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months to even a year. And that's time. So you choose to do that next book, and you're choosing that book instead of another book. Is there any book that you've been wanting to write that you've had to put down because, of this successful series?
I've actually had an idea for a standalone, but it wasn't that I didn't have time to do it. Is that it was a little bit too science fiction-y, and I don't do science fiction.
Yeah.
But now with AI the way it is, the way things are going right now, it's not science fiction anymore. It's plausible. 10 years ago, it'd have been, that's just stupid. Now it's like, well, I'm reading about this, so I might revisit it.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask the question because I know your fan base really wants to know. Every time you read a book and it's your favorite character, you want to see them get to the next level. They just go, hey, what's the odds of them making a television show or a movie? And I know people have come to you and they go, hey, we're going to do this. And then you wait 6 months and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, the Hollywood's a weird beast. I mean, statistically, there's 1% of the books that are optioned actually make it to the screen. Most of them end up in development hell and never go anywhere. And so I've had a lot of feels, and it's happened just basically what you said. So I mean, my usual answer is I didn't write a screenplay. I wrote a book. I write for the reader. If that happens, I'd be great. I actually don't look at it as the next level. I look at it as just a separate media. I'm on my level. I write books. I'm a New York Times bestseller, and that's my job. If I wanted to write screenplays, then I would turn around and write screenplays.
What's interesting is every time somebody came to me with one of these things, oh, we want to take this book here, we're going to do this. And after getting beaten up so bad, you don't quite know how to respond. And I wrote a book about 9/11, and it was a superhero book about 9/11. Well, now it's going to be in the 9/11 museum in August. And
cool.
The person kept telling me, hey, I go, don't, yeah, if it doesn't happen, we can't, for some reason, once you get burned so many times, you don't even pay attention to it anymore.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I have a guy in LA that's shopping my stuff around, and he sends me updates, and I'm like, when you have a contract, let me know. But other than that, I don't dwell on it.
Well, I can't tell you how great it is to talk to you. I'm sure you go all over the country signing. Are you doing any of that soon with the 20th book?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I just came back from Fort Lauderdale. Last night was actually the book launch party here. The Windjammer is a beach bar here in Charleston. It's in the book, so we did the launch party there. And then tomorrow I start the tour, first off in Atlanta, and then travel all over the country.
And what website can they go to be able to see, or social media page they can go to see where you're going to be next?
Yeah, they can go to bradtaylorbooks.com. They can read an excerpt of the book, but they can go to the events page and see where I'm going for each day. And Brad Taylor Books is also Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're posting all over those places.
All right. Well, I can't tell you how great it is to talk to you, and congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.